Hey everybody, Tactic Angel here, back on the PlayStation 4, talking about some World of Warships Legends. And today, we'll be looking at the USS Kidd. The USS Kidd is a Fletcher-class destroyer laid down in October 1942 and completed in February 1943. It is named after Isaac Kidd, who bravely rushed aboard the Arizona at Pearl Harbor and coordinated its defense, but who was presumed dead following the detonation of the Arizona's magazine. Admiral Kidd is the first U.S. admiral, but as we know, certainly not the last, to have died in combat. That said, the crew of the Kidd adopted the persona of the pirate captain William Kidd as their mascot, who you can see painted on the forward stack. More interestingly, the USS Kidd is also the only U.S. ship that can and does fly the Jolly Roger. This makes the inclusion of this flag in the Mega Bundle pretty confusing because I can't find anything to indicate that this is a real or meaningful flag. The Kidd is also one of 4 remaining ships of the Fletcher class that are preserved, 3 of which are in the United States. They are the USS Kidd, the USS The Sullivans, and the USS Cassin Young. The Kidd is attached to the Veterans Museum in Baton Rouge, and it is actually on a very interesting foundation where it keeps it elevated out of the water for half of the year while the river is low, and riding fairly normally in the water the other half of the year when the river is high. The USS The Sullivans is at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park in Buffalo, New York, and you can visit the Cassin Young in the Boston Naval Yard in Massachusetts. So, Tactic Angel, you say, this is a Fletcher-class destroyer. And that's true, it is. Fletcher-class destroyer is currently the Tier 7 in World of Warships Legends, so clearly something is different here, right? It has to be. Well, the simple fact is that this is missing a set of torpedo tubes, and it has replaced them with extra anti-aircraft guns. So essentially what this means as we go into the stats is this is not a destroyer that you're going to want to purchase if you're really into torpedoing people, because you only have one set of 5 torpedoes, and that's just not enough to rely on. So what does the Kidd actually do? Well, first thing we're going to do is go to survivability, and this is really where the Kidd is shining. The Kidd has around 2,100 more hit points than a Benson, which I'm going to be using for purposes of comparison. The Benson is, of course, the Tier 6 Tech Tree American destroyer. So, an extra 2,100 hit points. On top of that, the Kidd actually has a heal. Now, ordinarily heals are reserved for battleships and some cruisers, but this little destroyer has a heal, which is interesting and not always useful, but it can be, and I'll show you how. For artillery, essentially this has exactly the same sort of armament you would expect of a Benson and pretty much all of the higher tier American destroyers. So you have 5 127mm guns. They have the same range, reload, same damage as you'd expect on a Benson. For torpedoes, like I said, you only have one set of launchers, and there are 5 torpedoes in that launcher. These are actually closer to the Tier 7 torpedoes that you get on the Fletcher. They do around 5,000 more damage than the torpedoes that you can get even on an upgraded Benson, but you get a lot less of them, and they reload about 22 seconds slower. We're going to jump over to AA. Obviously, AA doesn't really matter much here, but the Kidd is the clearly superior vessel when it comes to anti-aircraft. They have replaced one of the torpedo tubes with these 3x2 Bofors and 2x4 Bofors. Also, it has Oerlikons, and probably the main battery counts as part of its anti-aircraft, because it certainly does on the Benson. For maneuverability, its characteristics are very similar to the Benson, except that it turns quite a bit more wide. At 610 meters, that's about 50 meters further than you'd expect on the Benson. And for concealment, they are exactly the same. Now you can currently purchase this on July 4th in several different bundles, one of which has the camouflage that the ship currently wears. The other is a very patriotic Stars and Stripes. I have picked up the one that is, I would say, historically accurate, but it's also currently accurate. So there you go. So here we go. We're on Neighbors. I appear to have cut out about the first minute of this match. I'm not sure if I meant to do that, but it happened, and we're going with it. So I'm going over to A. I'm going to see if I can't cap it. I've got potentially somebody trying to challenge me on my port. That's a battleship. It's going to take him a while to get here. A little bit more worried about the destroyer on my starboard, who could have easily driven into the cap and contested it and maybe shaved off all of my points. Now, instead, he came up a little short. He popped some smoke. I can't see him. We can see it's a Jarvis there. His smoke is not going to last that long. And he has a buddy, which is this Mayhan. Now, I have a buddy too, and I'm going to ask that buddy to try to focus down this Mayhan, because if we can both get our guns on the same target, not that he has a whole lot of choice about what he wants to shoot at, we should be able to get rid of him pretty quick. Now, obviously, the Kid is a pretty decent gunboat, being a Fletcher-class destroyer. Those fast-firing 127mm guns definitely can put the hurt out on other destroyers. And we're doing the same thing with the Jarvis here. Hopefully, our buddy can finish him off. And there you go. The Akatsuki does kill the Jarvis. I run face first into an island, which is always nice, but I kind of expected that to happen. And it looks like I've discovered a bug with the update, because my engine is out and somehow it's allowing me to back up. That's very useful, but I'm pretty sure this is not how the game's supposed to work. At this point, we're looking at that Amagi. We're thinking we can use this island, maybe come around the corner on him and be able to actually use our torpedoes. Now, we don't have very many. I've hit on that drum pretty hard, pretty often, but we only have the one shot with the torpedoes. You got to think of these like Captain Jack Sparrow. He has just the one bullet, and if I had waited just a little longer, I could have maybe come out closer to him. That would have maybe saved me some of the damage I'm taking from his secondaries. His primary guns are definitely not trained on me, and they can't track me. There's some weird camera work. Thank you, aiming situation. I do hit him with a torpedo. It would have been so much nicer to hit him with 2 or 3. You can see just how much damage they do because they are those tier 7 torpedoes, but at this point I have to wait a minute and 33 seconds. It's 2 minutes and 11 or 13 seconds. 2 minutes and 13? Whatever. In the heat of battle, it feels like forever. So at this point, I'm still getting chewed up by his secondaries. I need to slam on the brakes, because if I keep going like this, I'm going to get annihilated. We managed to get into smoke. We are unspotted, but that hit indicator seems to say that somebody behind me doesn't like me. And wouldn't you know it, there's a Miyoko over there. So what we're doing is we're moving around in the smoke. We're going to first see if we can't Citadel him with the AP. I'm probably not aiming this all that well, but, you know, we're getting some decent damage with actual pens on the AP. We're going to switch back over to HE as he kind of turns more towards us and continue to shoot him that way. We're getting pretty decent damage there too. He doesn't quite play the lack of the aimbot, so he lands those shells short, and I'm just barely gonna get in this kill before his main battery reloads and he murders my face off. So we're gonna speed this up because there's about a minute of me driving around even sped up. It'd be 4 times as bad if I didn't. Essentially what I want to really drive home is this is a gunboat. If you want a gunboat, this is one. I personally think the Bwiskovisa is a better ship in pretty much every regard, but you have to buy that with Jerzy Swirsky, otherwise you don't have a captain. So that ship is just eye-wateringly expensive. This isn't a bad ship, but its fortes are the same as pretty much all of the other American destroyers, and aircraft defense. Now, since aircraft carriers aren't a thing, right now the Kid is kind of... it solves a problem that doesn't exist, so that's something to think about. Now, if you trust that aircraft carriers are going to come out eventually, then maybe this is a good way to get on board. It's certainly not a bad ship. It certainly has a lot of history with the United States Navy, and, you know, you can have fun with it, but you will feel at a disadvantage, particularly in a carry situation, because you don't have enough torpedoes to make the system work. There's the weirdness. We are in a dreadnought in a destroyer, which means I took 120% of my hit points and damage. There we are on the top of the list. I hope you've enjoyed this little review. Enjoy your 4th of July, everybody, and I'll see you guys on the next one.